All right, let's take a deep dive into safe and efficient seed collecting in tropical forests. We're looking at a chapter from Tropical Forest Seed. It's all about techniques and, really emphasizes safety procedures, which I think is super important.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you wouldn't think there'd be that much to it,
Yeah,
right? Like just grabbing fruit off a tree.
you would think so, but
There's a whole lot more to it.
yeah, there's a lot more to consider. Like the book even points out that both beginners and D veterans, they're the ones who have the most accidents.
It's true. Beginners, obviously, lack of experience, but
Yeah.
those veterans, they get too comfortable.
A little overconfident.
Yeah, overconfident. They think they've seen it all, done it all.
Right, right. So, for anyone, thinking about heading up into the canopy, what are some things they should be aware of? What are some hazards?
Well, even the simplest tools can be dangerous. Secators, saws, you'd think, oh, you're just going to cut yourself.
Right.
But it's the risk of, injuring others.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, or being injured by someone else on the team because you get so focused on the task at hand.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, tunnel vision.
Like those cooking shows when they're just chopping vegetables so fast.
Exactly.
Mm.
And then you've got those long-handled tools, like, to pull down branches or whatever. If you misjudge the weight, especially if you're not holding them vertically,
Oh, yeah.
that can cause some accidents.
So even on the ground, you're saying, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about up in the trees, then?
Well, the book stresses using, high-quality climbing equipment,
Right. That makes sense.
regularly inspected. I mean, it's your lifeline up there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And here's a myth buster. Nylon ropes don't actually rot.
Oh, really?
We think, oh, humid jungle, everything rots.
Right, right.
But it's the heat, sunlight, friction, that kind of stuff that'll damage the nylon.
Interesting. So it's not that it goes bad. It's that it's
It's damaged by the elements, yeah.
damaged by the elements.
Yeah.
What about leather, then?
Now, leather, that's prone to rotting, especially in the humidity.
Okay.
You got to pay close attention to the rivet holes,
Okay.
That's where it'll start to tear and rot. Keep it dry. Maybe treat it with some leather grease.
Like taking care of a nice leather jacket.
Exactly.
So now I want to talk about falling objects, because that seems like a real danger to both the climber, obviously, and anyone on the ground.
Oh, yeah. The book is very clear about that. Climbers can't always escape a falling branch,
Yeah,
especially with wind and, things are unpredictable.
absolutely.
And ground crew, you never want to be underneath the climber.
Like a demolition crew, everyone runs away when the building starts falling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So hard hats,
Yeah.
essential for ground crew.
Yeah, good point.
And the climber can attach their tools to themselves with a string
Oh, that's smart.
so they don't drop them.
Yeah, keeps them safer.
Yeah, and saves you from losing a tool, 100 feet up in the air.
Right. So what about like the climbing harnesses, the safety lines? What do those look like?
Well, think of it as a multi-layered protection system. You've got your harness that goes around your waist and shoulders.
Uh-huh.
It's got D-rings to connect your safety strops and ropes and stuff.
Okay.
So the safety strops, those are crucial for when you're going vertical. Connect them to your harness, wrap them around the tree, and you move up.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. Whenever you hit a branch or a fork in the tree, you got to disconnect the strop to get past it.
Right.
And you always want to have a second strop connected above that obstacle before you detach the lower one.
So you're always attached to something.
Always attached, yeah.
Like rock climbers, clipping in and out as they go.
Exactly. Now, safety lines, those are for ascending and moving horizontally, descending. So it's connected to your harness, looped over an anchor point above you,
Okay.
and then attached back to you with a prusik loop. It's a special knot.
Interesting.
That gives you some slack to move around,
Yeah.
but if you fall, it catches you.
Oh, that's really cool.
You got to adjust it so it's not in the way, but still tight enough to limit a fall to just a couple meters.
So it's a pretty dynamic system.
Yeah, it is. But it's only as good as the person using it, right?
Of course.
So the climber needs to be fit, good balance, quick reflexes,
Makes sense.
and absolutely no fear of heights.
Yeah, I can imagine that wouldn't mix well with this job.
No, not at all. And no climbing while ill or recovering. Obviously, no drugs or alcohol. You need to be sharp.
Definitely. Focus is key. So we've talked gear, but what about clothing? What's the ideal outfit for, climbing these trees?
The book recommends strong, well-fitting clothing, no loose bits that can snag,
Makes sense?
good ventilation because it gets hot up there.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And here's a tip. Zippered clothing, tight cuffs, keep those ants out.
Oh, good idea. Those little things.
Yeah. Footwear is important too.
Yeah.
Sturdy shoes, high friction soles.
Okay.
And if you're using climbing spurs, boots are a must.
For shin protection, I imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And make sure those boots have a good heel so the spur doesn't slip off.
Good point. So now we've covered the climber, their gear, but what about the trees themselves? Are there hidden hazards there?
You're right. You got to know your trees, the book says. Different species have different branch strengths.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, some are brittle, lower branches, they're often dead, unsafe,
Okay.
and you got to watch out for diseases that can weaken branches.
So it's not just about being a good climber, it's about understanding the tree.
Right. A good rule of thumb is always have 3 points of support while you're climbing. 2 hands and 1 foot, 2 feet and 1 hand.
Always a backup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And only move 1 limb at a time.
Got it. Now, speaking of unnerving things in the jungle, what about bugs?
Well, ants are annoying, but not really dangerous. It's bees and wasps you got to watch for.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Use binoculars, check for nests before you even start climbing.
Yeah, I'd take ants over wasps any day.
Right, so if there's a nest, find a different tree.
Definitely. Okay, so let's say our climber is all set up, ready to go. What kind of equipment do they need while collecting?
You want to minimize weight and anything that sticks out. You don't want to snag on anything if you fall.
Right.
The book suggests hoisting your equipment up once you're in position, using a tool line.
Okay.
And be careful with sharp tools near your ropes.
Makes sense.
Spurs can damage those too.
It sounds like collecting seeds is more complex than people realize.
It is, but it's important work. Those seeds, they hold the genetic diversity of the whole ecosystem.
So it's not just gathering seeds, it's about preserving the forest.
Exactly. Think about research, new medicines, understanding biodiversity. It all starts with collecting those seeds.
That's a great point. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what happens to those seeds once they're back on the ground.
Right, because that's a whole other chapter.
Exactly, and that's where we'll pick up in the next part of your deep dive. We'll look at processing, storage, and how those seeds get from the jungle to labs and nurseries around the world.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been talking about collecting seeds from those tall tropical trees.
Yeah, getting them down from the canopy.
Right. But now we got to think about what happens when they're back on the ground.
Make sure those seeds are still viable, right?
Exactly. For research, for planting new trees, all that good stuff.
So what happens next?
Well, imagine you're a scientist and you get a package of seeds from, the middle of the jungle. How do you even know what you're looking at?
Good point.
That's where good record keeping comes in. Super important. Starts in the field and it follows the seed lot through every single step. Processing, storage, testing, even distribution.
Like a chain of custody, but for seeds?
Exactly. So you need to know what species you're dealing with,
Makes sense.
even down to the subspecies or variety.
Wow, so specific.
Yeah, it's got to be precise. And if there's any doubt, the collectors will take what we call herbarium specimens.
Herbarium specimens.
Yeah, so it's like flowers, leaves, fruits, that kind of thing. They're pressed, labeled, and linked to that seed lot.
So it's like a botanical fingerprint for the seeds.
Exactly. And then you've got the location data. Got to be as specific as possible. GPS coordinates, ideally.
Right.
Altitude, what kind of soil it is. You want the whole picture where these seeds came from.
Their environmental context.
Right. And, got to record info about the parent trees, too.
Oh, like their size, their health.
Well, more like how many parent trees were involved.
Okay.
That helps us understand the genetic diversity.
Makes sense. So all this data is great, but it needs to be organized, right?
Got it. Think about those little seed packets. Each one needs to be clearly labeled. The book suggests using a unique numbering system for each seed lot.
Okay.
Waterproof ink on durable tags. And here's a pro tip. Put duplicate labels inside and outside the container, just in case.
Like a backup copy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now let's talk about containers. Those actually vary depending on the type of feed.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So for dry fruits, a cone bag works well. It's like a pouch the climber wears. Yeah, then they transfer to a bigger bag later. But if the seeds are collected from the ground or pruned branches, then you want open containers.
Like baskets.
Yeah, baskets, buckets, even a tarp or canvas sheet can work.
So it's about using the right container for the job.
Yep. What about fleshy fruits like mangoes, avocados, that kind of thing?
Those seem like they'd be messy.
They can be.
Mm-hmm.
Metal buckets are best for those, more durable than plastic, and you can fix them if they get dented.
Right. Could have that field practicality.
Exactly. Now those tiny dust-like seeds, those are the real challenge.
I can imagine.
The book says to use a canvas sheet spread on the ground.
Okay.
You collect the whole branch with the fruits on it, then fold up the sheet and tie it securely.
Smart. So those little seeds don't escape.
Yep. So we've got our seeds collected, labeled in containers. What happens next?
Pre-processing, right. Getting them ready for transport.
You got it. And that's where we'll pick up next time. We'll explore all that pre-processing, the storage techniques, and the whole journey those seeds take from the jungle to the lab.
I can't wait. Those little seeds, they hold so much potential. It's amazing. We'll be back soon to finish up this deep dive, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's the final part of our deep dive into seed collection in tropical forests. We've covered a lot of ground, from climbing those giant trees to keeping those seeds safe in their containers.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. But we're not done yet. We're at this crucial point, right? Pre-processing, storage, and then getting those seeds from, the middle of nowhere to labs and nurseries around the world.
It's like the last leg of a relay race. We got to make sure these seeds can actually do what they're supposed to do.
Make new trees, help with research, all of that. So let's start with pre-processing. What happens to the seeds after they're collected?
Well, there's some cleaning, some sorting, but it really depends on the type of seed and what it's going to be used for. Sometimes you got to remove the fruit pulp. Sometimes you got to extract the seeds from pods or cones.
Oh, I see. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not. And during this whole process, those seed collectors, they're looking for any signs of damage, disease, insects.
They're like seed detectives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only the best seeds make it to the next stage. It's all about quality control.
Makes sense. So once those seeds are all cleaned up and sorted, how do they get stored out in the field? I mean, it's hot, it's humid.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Keeping those seeds from germinating too early or getting moldy, you got to control the moisture, the temperature.
So it's about finding that sweet spot. Not too dry, not too damp.
Right. The traditional methods are pretty cool. Some people bury the seeds in dry sand or hang them in breathable bags in the shade.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It is. But we're also seeing new technology come into play, like portable coolers that run on solar power,
Oh, wow.
or even special drying cabinets you can take out to remote areas.
So it's like blending the old with the new.
Exactly. And speaking of technology, it's really revolutionized the way we transport seeds.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
I mean, think about it. Years ago, it could take months for seeds to reach their destination.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And a lot of them wouldn't even survive the trip. Bumpy roads, the weather, sometimes they'd even get confiscated at borders.
That's crazy.
It was a nightmare. But these days, with better transportation and logistics, it's much faster.
So those seeds can get where they need to go much quicker.
Exactly. Sometimes within days. And they even have special packaging to keep the temperature and humidity just right during shipping.
It's like a little traveling incubator for seeds.
Pretty much. And it's all worth it because those little seeds, they can help us do amazing things. Restore forests, find new medicines, maybe even fight climate change.
It's incredible to think about the potential they hold. And it all starts with those seed collectors out there doing this really important work.
It's true. They're the unsung heroes, braving all kinds of conditions to bring us these tiny treasures from the rainforest.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just filled with awe for, how everything is connected, from those giant trees to the people working to protect them. It's amazing.
I feel the same way. Every seed has a story to tell, and it's our job to make sure those stories continue.
And who knows what those stories might reveal? Maybe the answers to some of our biggest problems are hidden within those tiny seeds.
You never know. Well, that about wraps up our exploration for today.
A huge thank you to all those dedicated seed collectors out there. Your work is truly inspiring. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring the world, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.